My name is Susan Corpus, and I'm your NC for this evening. Welcome to Chronic Care International Leadership Event. We are so excited. With COVID, we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to do this event. We usually do a leadership breakfast, but this year we decided, let's do it virtually, and then people from all over can watch and learn about this awesome nonprofit. So first things I want to do is I want to welcome you and thank you for your time. I also want to let you know that Chronic Care International, for those who don't know, we're a US-based nonprofit. We're celebrating our 10th year, and we provide life-saving care to people with diabetes and high blood pressure who live in poverty. It's a great nonprofit organization, and I'm proud to be a part of the board. Before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit about the agenda. First, you're having me as the greeter. I'm doing my greeting now. And then we're going to have a prayer with Dr. Larry Gillick, after which I will be speaking about the 5 love languages. And then my dear friend, Dr. Hans Deathless, will be doing the CCI update. We'll have a closing remarks by another one of our good friends, Christian Warnicki. So before we get started, I'd like to thank our chairs, Gary and Mary Pekar. They are true pillars of the community. Gary was a fire captain for 28 years, and Mary has served as our event manager for reruns for 21 years. They volunteer extensively and they share their gifts and talents, and we're so grateful they're our event chairs of 2020. Thank you, Mary and Gary. I also like to thank our sponsors, Village Point Pediatrics, Tax Help Omaha, Hoover Dentistry, and Baxter. We're so blessed to have their support. Thank you very much. And at any time in the evening you feel moved to share your gifts, please just look at the bottom of the screen. You'll see something that says text gift or PayPal or an online. We appreciate your support. If you can give financially, great. Otherwise, we really need your prayers. So we want to make sure that we continue to bless the 1,200 patients and more in the Dominican Republic. Again, let's just move straight away to Father Larry Gillick.
Let us pray. We pray with the awareness of the poverty of the human condition, minds and bodies and spirits. These days of the oppression on our bodies and minds and spirits of the virus that has changed all of our lives. It's our poverty. We pray with, as well as for, healing, with the awareness that we have needs. We have the richness of caring people, doctors caring for the chronically ill, the diabetic, the hypertension, people who experience their poverty. The doctors and nurses also experience within the richness of their gifts the poverty that they can't do it all. Loving, caring, healing God, help us live with our poverty and with the gifts of richness of mind and skill, and especially the gift we thank you for of caring, chronically caring, timeless, the need we have for your comfort of how we live with our poverty. We ask a special blessing on those who out of their richness share with the poor and the needy what they can share, their gifts, their talents. We ask your blessing, your care, that we might see it in what we do and what we see. As you blessed this world with creation, may you bless the gifts of our creation as we help others. We make this prayer to you, the giver God, through the gift of Jesus Christ, who is Lord forever and ever.
Thank you, Father Larry Gillick. What a wonderful priest he is. If you ever have a chance to meet him in person, just do it, because he is amazing. I just really enjoy all the time that I can be with Father Larry Gillick. So now a little bit about me before we get started. I have a master's in counseling, and I taught for several years, first grade and kindergarten, and now for the last 15 a long time. I've been the office manager at our office, Corpus Family Dentistry, and but my passion is speaking to wives and couples and business people and school staff. I've talked to several people, and what I know about the 5 love languages, I've learned that if we can apply them to our life, then they will bless those that are in our lives. So I'm not speaking that I'm a pro. I'm by far a pro at this, but I would say that I know them pretty well, and I do my best to speak them. So before we get started on the 5 love languages, I just want to share with you a few things. When we talk about the 5 love languages, I think it's really important that you think, who do you love the most? If I asked you, who were the top 5 people that you love the most? Maybe the top 1. Now let's say we're going to expand that. Let's do the top 2. Maybe that includes your spouse and maybe your child, or maybe you have multiple children. When I go into businesses and speak, I don't want to say just let's talk about the 5 love languages at work, because I want to talk about if a person goes to work and they aren't feeling loved and affirmed, then they're going to be distracted, and they're not going to be focused and not fulfilled, and they won't be doing their best work. So what I like to do is start here and then go out. And you can make me full screen. Okay, so the first thing is what I want to talk about is the love tank. And if this is our love tank, you can just imagine, and I'm going to speak a little bit about my husband, Ralph. So let's say this is Ralph's love tank, and I say, hoy es un grande día porque es muy importante, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, honey, I don't speak Spanish. Well, it's the same thing with the love language. If I'm speaking a love language that he doesn't understand, it's going to be like Charlie Brown, want love, and he'll miss 90% of it. So what I need to do is learn his language. So if this is his love tank, I want him to feel, and hopefully you can see this, I want him to see and absorb every drop of the love I give him instead of wah. Does that make sense? So I'm going to be as full as I can when I give my love. I want to make sure that I know Ralph's language. I want to make sure that I know our children's languages. And I want to do that in a way that they can receive. Now, on the reverse is, I also have the power to speak languages, but I also have the power to damage that. And this is going to be, I don't know if this is going to show on camera, but we're going to do our best. Let's just say I don't speak the language very well, or I do something. This is what happens to his love tank. It's not very affirming. And maybe I didn't intend to do it, but this is what happens. So it's really important, I think, to fill the love tank rather than puncture it. As human beings and people who love, we want to love the people in our life, but inevitably, sometimes we puncture those love tanks. So what I want to do is teach you how to love and recognize when you might puncture. So get ready, because this is usually an hour to an hour and a half, and I have only 15 minutes. So I'm going to set this to the side. The first thing I want to talk to you about is of course, my love language is words of affirmation. Words of affirmation, we have words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, physical touch, and receiving gifts. Now, I don't know how many of you know about the love languages. It was written came up with Gary Chapman, and here are some of the books that he has. And there's also a quiz you can take online, which only takes about 3 minutes. But this isn't some of the examples. So first, let me talk to you about words of affirmation. Words of affirmation are like, thank you, great job at, I'm so proud of you, I forgive you, I'm sorry. For me, those words are like breath, like I need that. Today, I'm just going to give you a personal example because I really like to be transparent. I went into the office this morning, and there at my desk was a card, and this is what it said. You are 500% amazing, beautiful inside and out. I am truly blessed to have met you. Thank you. Stay strong, Pamela. When I read that and it was with a gift, I started bawling. And she saw me crying and she said, Susan, don't cry, don't cry. And I said, you have no idea what these words mean to me. They are just so powerful. So if you were to get a card that someone affirmed you and said how amazing you are and that they appreciate you in their life and that you did a good job at work or closing a sale or talking to a patient or whatever it might be, being patient with the kids, being patient with your husband or your spouse. If you receive a card like that, or if someone speaks those words of love and you feel like I did this morning, maybe not to tears, but still that you felt so happy, you might be a words of affirmation person. Now let's think about the person that you said number one was closest to you. If they are words of affirmation, and this is not the language you speak, these are the words you need to learn. I'm proud of you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Boy, you look really nice. I can tell you got your hair cut today. That's a big one at my house because I'm like, did anybody notice I got my hair cut? So it's really important to use those words. Now I'm going to go on to, and especially like you were my top priority. I really like that one. Okay, I'm going to go on to what Ralph's is. His is acts of service. Now, this is hard because I speak words of affirmation. I speak it fluently and I'm really good at it. But his language is acts of service. So in order to love him, I need to speak his language. So acts of service is cleaning up, taking the trash out, maybe making the coffee, buying the right coffee, working behind the scenes. That's what Ralph does. He's a quiet little worker, and he doesn't need to be up in front of everybody, but you'll be like, oh, who did that? Well, it was Ralph. Oh, this changed. Oh, who did that? It was Ralph. So if you know somebody in your life that, like at work, perhaps makes sure the lounge is clean, or maybe makes the coffee every morning or sets it up. Like we have Mary at the office and she's constantly making sure the fountain's going, turning on the lights, making sure the front door is ready. I mean, she just does all these things to make sure behind the scenes, her acts of service, that's how she shows love. So if I want to show love to, let's say, Mary, I maybe need to get there, beat her to the stick a little bit, get there a little bit earlier to work, have the fountain on, have the computer set up, turning on the lights, the music's going, that kind of thing. So think about number one. If your number one likes to do things and you're wondering, why aren't they telling me that how great I am? Or why aren't they saying the words, I love you? Their language might be acts of service. They might be speaking to you in a different language, and that's why you don't understand it. So think outside the box. Is my significant or my children or the people that I work with, are they doing acts of service and trying to show me affirmation? Okay, so we know organizing a get-together, vacuuming, those are just some brief ideas. Next up are physical touch. Quality time. So quality time, I brought this is an old calendar, but I like to share it. You can show me, Hans. I like to share this calendar. I'm going to have go big screen for you so you can see it. It's pretty full and it has things covered. But the problem is, let's just say Ralph is quality time and I have my day and my night all covered and we're running here and we're running there and dropping the kids off here and whatever stage of life we're in, then there's no time for quality time. But that's what happens when I need my bowl again, when we puncture. So let's just say, Ralph says, hey, what time are you going to be home from work? And then I get home late. This is what happens. I don't fill it, but I puncture it, right? Because I'm not giving the quality time. Or maybe what happens is when I get in the door, I do this, let me puncture another hole, and let me see where this is. And I pick this up. I don't know how many of you have a cell phone. I'm assuming probably 100% of you. But if you have a person that's quality time in your life, you need to put this down. You need to put it away. You need to turn it off. You need to turn off the vibrating sound, whatever it is. Research shows that when you're with a person and the phone is up, that other person already feels like you're tuned out. And if it's even down, it's a little less, but still they know that if this beeps, you're going to look at it. And when I look at my phone, am I looking at you? No. So when that happens, that punctures that love tank. It's really, really important for quality time people that you are present. At work, we have some quality time people. We do a quiz. I have everybody at work take the quiz. So we all know it's very transparent what language each person is. And it's posted. And so at work, when I have somebody come into my office, I back up out of my chair. And then what I do is I turn towards them. I move my hands off the keyboard and I look at them. I stop what I'm doing. Now, let's say I'm in the middle of an email. I'll say, can you give me 30 seconds? And I finish my email to finish my thought. And then I give them the quality time. Quality time people would rather have 3 minutes, just 3 minutes of you alone than 30 minutes of you distracted. So just think about that for a minute. Do you have somebody in your life that you feel is quality time? They want to take a walk with you. They want to go on a lunch date with you. They just want to be with you. Think about how you can fulfill that for them. How can you fill their tank for quality time? Okay, next is the physical touch. Physical touch, excuse me. Let's see, there we go, physical touch, thank you. Physical touch for me is one of my second language. My dad was a physical touch guy. He really hugged us a lot. And so I learned how to do that in my home when I was growing up. But oftentimes you speak the language that you learn in your home. So I learned words of affirmation and I learned physical touch. Ralph learned acts of service. Both his parents were tremendous acts of service. His mom, Lola, we call her, she's 93 and she lives with us and she's still doing acts of service. I'll find the counters wiped down or the loads of laundry done. I mean, she just does it quietly, but it's her way to love. So now we're going to go back to, sorry, I sometimes like to skip because I think of special people in my life. So I jumped from acts of service. Now I'm going to go back to physical touch, my dad. My dad, I remember he was about 6'2" or 3", and he was a big guy, and my mom was 5'7", and I remember that he would just wrap his arms around my mom when she was at the sink doing dishes, and she would wave him off a little bit and say, "Stan." Well, now that I know the 5 love languages, when she waved him off, what was she really doing to his love tank? Puncturing it. Because she was saying, I don't want to be touched by you right now. But he was trying to love her. So think of the person in your life that's closest. Do they want a lot of hugs? Do they sit really close to you? Do they put their hand on you? People at work usually have to stop by and touch your shoulders a little bit, give you a pat on the back, a fist bump. If you think about it, you'll start recognizing people that have these qualities and you'll say, aha, they're physical touch. What's really, really important is that when someone you notice, let's say I'm physical touch and I go to a business meeting and I walk really close into somebody, and I get kind of, as they say, in their bubble, what's going to happen is that person, inadvertently, I just punctured their tank because I got way too close. They don't want me to be there and they don't speak physical touch. It makes them very anxious and nervous. So it's really important, if you are physical touch, to know the boundaries, what's safe to do, and who is it safe to do with. So I'm grateful. I have some kids that are physical touch. Our Michael's physical touch. He hugs a lot. And I appreciate those hugs. And sometimes physical touch, just in order to get it, if we have kids that are physical touch, like Michael, when he was little, he would get it in all sorts of ways. And sometimes they weren't the ways I want him to get it. Like he'll just want physical touch with his brother or sister, and I'll pick him up and toss him around a little bit. And they're like, Michael, I know you're physical touch. Come on already, just hug me and get it over with. So it's really important if you can get your family to all understand. It's like opening up a brand new world because you'll know where you can love each other even better. So that's physical touch. Think about the people closest in your life that like to hug you, and then maybe surprise them and hug them first. Okay, the last one is gifts. Now, I'm not a really big gift giver, although I do like to pick things out. Every once in a while, I like to do some surprises, but it's not my first language that I speak. Now, gifts, I'm not talking about flowers, and it doesn't have to be an expensive gift like jewelry and flowers. What I'm talking about is if you know that your spouse likes Butterfingers, bring them a Butterfinger. or bring her a Butterfinger. If you know that they like Snickers, don't bring them a Butterfinger, bring them a Snickers, because that will fill the tank even more. Because why? You thought about it. You put some thought to it. I have a friend that's a gift giver, and what she does is she and I have totally different personalities. If I give a gift, I might just wrap it in a brown lunch bag, fold it over, staple it, and put Hans on it. I might just do that. But what she would do is she would wrap it up so beautifully with the most beautiful ribbon and put something that is exactly for the receiver on there. I'm like, it's so pretty, I don't even want to open it. She's a gift giver. Gift givers do not wait till Christmas Eve to shop. Gift givers shop for the perfect thing all year round for Christmas. They don't waste the time. They want to make sure that they have the perfect thing. So gift givers could be flowers, cards, jewelries. It could be their favorite beer in the fridge, or their favorite LaCroix. Whatever it is, if you can find out their favorites, it matters to gift givers. And the same thing, I don't speak gifts. So let's say I have a friend in my life that gives me a perfect gift. I need to make sure that I acknowledge, that I say, thank you so much. I can tell you really thought about it. Because if I just look at it and say, oh, that's great. I mean, how fake is that? They're going to be like, she didn't even like my gift. And if they're gift givers, that would be puncturing their hole. And I don't want to do that. So when you think about the people in your life, and I want you to think about the closest people. And then once you master that, what I want you to do is go out and think about, okay, how about the people that are my friends? And then maybe go to work and say, hey, I've been butting heads with somebody at work. Why, I wonder? Well, is it because you're speaking two different languages? Maybe so. I just challenge you to do that. I'm going to let you know that the 5 love language is on the, there is a quiz that I spoke about, and it's right here. It's www.5lovelanguages.com/quizzes. There's one for singles. There's one for kids. There's one for couples. It literally takes you less than 5 minutes. If you want to do an activity with your work, I strongly suggest you get together and have everybody take it, because it will make your work environment, it will elevate that to a new height, and people will really appreciate each other a little bit more. It's just a wonderful tool to have in your toolbox. So this was so brief, but I just want to encourage you to keep filling the love tanks of those you love, and those you work with, because it does matter. It makes everything better. So that's all I have for the 5 love languages. And I hope wherever you lead, whether it's your families or your work, I hope you can take it and maybe take the quiz and maybe be blessed by it. And if you are, I'd love to see, feel free to email me. My email's on the screen, and I would love to have some feedback. But next up is somebody I really have known for a long time. We met in college at Creighton. It's Dr. Hans Deathless, and I'm so thrilled that he is just felt the call to start this organization. He is a physician at One World Health Center. He is also president of CCI. I know you're going to learn so much about Chronic Care International and what we're doing, the great things that this organization is doing. And I just, again, thank you for your support. Here's Hans.
So good evening. Thanks so much for coming. And thanks, Susan, for really speaking to the 5 love languages. Thank you, Father Gillick, for the opening prayer. And again, thank you to our sponsors and to Gary and Mary Peckar, who are co-chairs this year around. So I just want to reflect briefly on Susan's fantastic presentation. The 5 love languages is a theme that Andrea and I stumbled across years ago as well, and really tried to apply it to our family, understanding the love languages for our kids. We did the leadership breakfast with the title Leadership because one of our board members in Chicago has a leadership event where they invite business leaders. And the purpose of that breakfast is to raise money, but they invite people to speak on leadership because in business, that's one of the key themes. In recent years, and I'm not a business person, but what I gather from that world is there's this new terminology, which is emotional intelligence. And they talk about your EQ, or your emotional quotient. And I, on reflecting on that, was really struck that it's really kind of a 5 love language concept, because the idea is, in the business world, love is maybe too soft of a term, and so they speak of emotional intelligence, but it's basically being aware of the people you work with, and where they are in their lives. Are they up? Are they down? And how to interact with them in a way that makes them feel appreciated. And so business is all about efficiency and effectiveness. And so if you want to be emotionally intelligent in your workplace, I think doing what Susan has been talking about with regards to understanding the love languages allows you to more effectively and efficiently let the people you know that you work with know that they're valuable. So thanks so much, Susan, for that presentation. I really just have 3 purposes for this evening, and I appreciate you all taking the time to join us. And those 3 purposes are: 1, to give you a little bit of a framework of what is CCI as an organization and what's the problem that we're trying to tackle. 2, I want to draw you in a little bit to the conversation and put the spotlight on you. We really want you to walk away from this evening feeling like it was value added to you, and you are as important to us as our patients in the Dominican Republic. And then the 3rd thing I want to do is let you know, so what has CCI done with the pandemic, being so far away from the Dominican Republic? So I'll start off with just talking a little bit about Chronic Care International. Susan let you know that we are a nonprofit, that we focus on chronic disease work. Nonprofit has an all volunteer board. We're spread from coast to coast, but we have a core in Omaha, Nebraska. We have 1 half-time employee, Corey Lawson, who coordinates all our work and is trying to keep us on the straight and narrow as far as our work in the U.S. and then how we coordinate things in the Dominican Republic. In the DR, we have a staff of 16 doctors, nurses, and health promoters. They provide care in our 2 clinics to about 1,200 patients. All of them have chronic diseases, diabetes, or high blood pressure. All of them are poor, and all of them live in rural areas. With our patients, we provide doctor visits, we provide lab testing, education, with education, what we call self-management support, and medications. So really, as an organization, what we're geared to is figuring out how do we handle or help with the problem of diabetes and high blood pressure in developing environments where people are poor and struggling. The Dominican Republic is a country in the Caribbean. It's just southeast of Cuba. And we work in the middle of the country. If you can see in the middle, there's a town, La Vega. Our clinics are in that area. The only unfortunate thing is it is far away from the Dominican beautiful beaches. So I'd like to talk just a little bit about diabetes and hypertension in general. Diabetes affects about 463 million people in the world. As I've watched over the last several years, it's going up about 10 to 20 million every year. The projections back in 2000 and 2010 had us about 100 to 200 million fewer as relates to how much they were anticipating the growth and the explosion of diabetes. And so it's growing a lot faster than anyone anticipated. There are about 1.13 billion people with hypertension or high blood pressure in the world. And the 2 together cause heart attacks, they cause strokes, they cause kidney failure, blindness, they cause chronic pain and leg amputations. And across the globe, about 10 million people die of hypertension and diabetes each year. The organization is really geared towards the treatment and prevention of diabetes and hypertension and their complications. So when we started, which was in 2010, 10 years ago, the reason we began is because Dr. Philippi, our chairman, had a conversation with a Dominican physician. And that Dominican physician said, 70% of ER visits in the Dominican Republic are related to diabetes and hypertension. And Dr. Philippi is a surgeon. He focuses on hernia work internationally, but he couldn't ignore that conversation with regards to the sheer weight of the problem in the Dominican Republic. It coincidentally was the case that Dr. Philippi's daughter-in-law, Linda, was a diabetes educator. And so he and Frances Ann, Dr. Philippi's wife, and Linda got together and planted the first seeds of Chronic Care International to start a treatment and prevention program in the Dominican Republic. So what does that mean? What is treatment and prevention? It really has four pieces. One is that we provide access to good health care and medications, which our patients otherwise wouldn't have access to. We really emphasize and educate on healthy diet, on regular exercise, and then on a concept we call self-management support. So here's where I'd like to kind of invite you into my office and suppose that you're a patient coming to the clinic, perhaps down at One World where I work, and we're going to talk about your diabetes or how to prevent it. And so I give about a 1-minute spiel on diet and on exercise, and then try to work with my patients with self-management support. If you want the full spiel, you need to sit down with a dietitian for an hour or two, or have a personal trainer to talk to you about exercise. But I'd like to hit the high points with you because I think they're valuable and relatively simple to apply to your own life. And a great outcome for this evening would be that each of you comes away from the conversation with a little bit of an idea of, what could I do in my life to walk in the opposite direction of diabetes and high blood pressure to live a longer and healthier life. So when I talk about a healthy diet, I really break it down into two pieces. First, there's sugared beverages. So it is essential that people not drink calories. So if you have a soda or a juice, a glass of juice, or a bottle of Gatorade, and you do that once, it doesn't do anything to you. But if that's your habit, if that's what you do daily, day after day for a year, it adds up to 17 pounds. And so if it's your habit to drink a sugar beverage every day and you do that for 3 years, that's 51 pounds of weight that you have to figure out how to get rid of. If you do 2 or 3 a day, I'll let you do the math on that. It's not good. So some people are into doing smoothies, by way of example. If you do a vegetable smoothie, you can do that all day and you're good to go. But a lot of people also do fruit smoothies, and that's essentially drinking 10 pieces of fruit at once. And so 1 orange or a handful of strawberries is a perfect portion of fruit to eat. But once again, you shouldn't drink your calories. And so the first piece of the puzzle with a healthy diet is don't drink your calories. The second piece of the diet puzzle has to do with what you eat and your portions. And so we really just in the Dominican Republic talk about the plate method. And the plate method is just that if you take your plate, half of it should be fruits and vegetables, and half of it should be a portion of protein, say chicken or some sort of meat or fish, and grains in the other quarter of your plate. And then perhaps some dairy off to the side. And your plate should not be a large mound, but rather a relatively flat structure by the time you're done filling it. So a portion is about the size of your palm, and you should apply that to your main meals, to your plate method. But then in between meals, what you eat and the portion concept translates there as well. So if you're going to do chips rather than an apple, the apple would be a better choice. But if you're going to do chips, you need to pay attention to how many portions in the bag. If it says 3 portions, you're supposed to be sharing it with 3 people and not eating it all during your favorite TV show. So for a healthy diet, don't drink your calories, use the plate method, which is a little bit rich in fruits and vegetables, and watch your portions. For regular exercise, when people come to me in the office, they often kind of want, what's the magic pill? What will keep me young and active and healthy? And I always write them one prescription. And that prescription says regular exercise. So if you could put the fountain of youth in a prescription, that would be it. People who do regular exercise suffer from fewer cancers. They avoid heart attacks, strokes, they avoid diabetes, they avoid high blood pressure. It probably helps generate new brain cells and put off Alzheimer's or dementia into your future as well. So there is no medication that I can prescribe you that is better than regular exercise. And so there the question is, well, how much exercise? And so generally we tell people, well, you should exercise 30 minutes 5 days in the week or 150 minutes a week. If you're a vigorous exerciser, like a runner, you could do 15 minutes a day for 5 days a week or 75 minutes in a week. But really recent research suggests that anything helps a ton. And so if you do nothing, even a brisk walk to your mailbox and back every day for the first week of your exercise routine would make a difference in the long run if you sustained that. And so it takes relatively little exercise. It doesn't have to be super intense, but any physical activity has a tremendous benefit for your long-term health. So the real challenge for all of us is, how do you apply that to your life? How do you take these general concepts like the love languages, a healthy diet, regular exercise, and apply them to what you do day in and day out? So that's where self-management support comes into play. So self-management really speaks to how do I take general ideas and goals that I have and make them happen in the actual practice of my life. And self-management support for us as CCI means working with our patients to help them set small, realistic goals and to follow up with them and support them in that. And so for this next little piece, I really would love for you all to have a pen and a piece of paper or an electronic device that you can write on, because I'm going to ask you to write down the answer to a question. And here's the question. So, how do you perceive yourself? You've got 3 answers to pick from, and I want you to write down your answer. So 1 is, I have room to grow as a person. 2 is, I have room to grow as a person, but can't or don't want to. And then 3 is, I do not have room to grow as a person. So I'm going to give you just 10 seconds to write down that answer. Grab a pen if you don't have one, because I want you to commit to this. And honestly, how do you perceive yourself at this point in time? I better write this down myself. So you can just write down the number if you want. I'm going to ask Susan to write her number down too. All right, I'm committed. Good. So the next step is I want to divide you into 2 groups. So there's those of you who picked 1 or 2, which means you recognize you have a little room for change. And then there's group 3 who have really just kind of made it in life. You're there, nowhere else to go, and things are looking good. I'm happy for you. So if you are in group 3, you've got a minute and a half free right now. And what I'd suggest is go get yourself a bowl of your favorite ice cream because you're just there and the ice cream's not going to do you any harm because you probably ran 10 miles this morning. So the ice cream people can go off to the fridge. And with everybody else, I want you to keep your pen and piece of paper because what I'd like you to do is what we ask our patients to do in the Dominican Republic. What I ask my patients to do when they come to see me at One World is I would like you to write down and commit to a self-management goal. I put up here a list of potential goals and I break them down into 3 categories: mind, body, and spirit. And the reality is, if you pick a goal in any of those areas and are successful at it, you begin a forward motion as a person of change, and that spills over into the other areas of your life. And so it really doesn't matter what area you say, I want to focus here, it's going to benefit you in every aspect of your life. And so you can pick from this list, or if you've got something in your head like, I've been meaning to do this, or I would love to do this, you don't have to pick from the list. You can just commit to something else. I'd encourage you, 1, to make it small, 2, to make it very concrete. So not that I'm going to start exercising, that's not concrete enough, but I'm going to start walking to the mailbox starting tomorrow morning, that's very concrete. Put a time or a day when you're going to do it. It can be a one-time thing or the beginning of a new habit. And if there's someone who's good at dogging you to make sure you get things done, you might share that goal with them. So I'm going to give you just a full minute here. I want you to really think about it, and I'd like you to write down a goal. And I'm going to do the same. I think Susan's already got her goal written down. I'm just going to put a timer on for 1 minute to keep myself on track here. All right. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay. Oh, minute's up. So I went ahead and got some vanilla ice cream because I was a 3, but on the way to the fridge, actually, my wife tackled me and suggested that I might have some ways to improve. So if you are a 3, I forgot to mention, it might be best to ask a family member or a friend if they perceive you as a 3, because oftentimes they have suggestions on how you might improve. And so I'm going to save my vanilla ice cream for later and share with you what my goal is. And what I'd like you to do, is if you were bold enough to put down a concrete goal and a real goal for yourself, I'd like you to chat that to us. The other thing I'd like you to do while I'm finished up the latter part of my presentation is if you have any chat questions for Susan, she's a tremendous resource and just an expert in the love languages and has great suggestions with regards to resources you could tap into and also with regards to concrete examples and suggestions to help you be a fluent love language person. So chat any questions you might have for Susan or suggestions or comments about her presentation. And if you're willing, chat us your goal. I find it really inspiring myself to see what other people are doing to improve themselves and the ways that they want to grow. And so if you're bold enough, please chat us what goal you set for yourself. Now, if you were a 3, you can just chat us what flavor ice cream you selected, because I'm interested in that as well. So the reason really I want you to set a goal this evening is because your health is important to me. And I love being around people who are having kind of forward motion in their lives. And I've certainly come to realize that if you don't have really concrete goals, you can't do that. And so that minute that I just gave you a few moments ago is what I would call a sabbatical. And this is the last piece on kind of goal setting that I think is important for our patients in the Dominican Republic. It's important for myself, and I think it's important for all of us, is the only way we can work towards a horizon, the only way we can work in a good direction moving forward in life is to take breathers, to take a sabbatical, to take quality time, as Susan suggests, to just reflect, okay, so how was my day today? What did I do well? What did I not do well? Did I have a goal? Did I make progress towards my goal? Or did I walk in the wrong direction? The Judeo-Christian tradition has a brilliant thing called the Sabbath, which is really the root of sabbatical, which is to say, take time every week, some significant time to slow down, to stop working, to halt your busyness, and to be reflective with regards to am I growing? Am I walking in a healthy direction with regards to my mind, body, and spirit? And so I'd encourage all of you, perhaps even as a goal, to say, how can I carve out part of my week as my sabbatical or my Sabbath? And I think you'll find that it's transformative for your life, as opposed to once a year setting a New Year's resolution that lasts a couple weeks into your year, and then you're off to the busy routine of regular life again. So I want to move on to the third and last part of my presentation. So I painted a little bit of a picture of who we are as CCI, the huge problem that we're trying to face internationally, which is diabetes and high blood pressure, particularly amongst the poor. We've talked a little bit about healthy diet, healthy exercise, how to be a good self manager as far as personal goals. And now I'd like to talk about kind of this COVID pit that we've all fallen into. So at the beginning of the year, CCI, we had big aspirations, and we were wanting to train two new organizations in the Dominican Republic. And actually in February, we went down to the DR right as the pandemic was beginning to hit. We trained a public health clinic and a private clinic teams on how to do our model of chronic disease care so that more patients could benefit. We also had aspirations of starting work in the Philippines, and we were very excited about that. But with the pandemic, as happened with all of us, we fell into this kind of pit where all of our plans were taken away. Our spring was interrupted. Our year was transformed without our desiring it to be transformed. And so none of us have gone unaffected with COVID. Either it's self-isolated us or it's affected us economically or via health personally or with a family member or friend. There's a little deeper place within this kind of time of COVID where a lot of people live, and that's the place of material poverty. In South Omaha, One World where I work, our experience has definitely been that if you're poor, you run into three unique challenges with COVID. One, you typically live in a small apartment or home with an extended family, and so you have no way to quarantine or to self-isolate. You're not in a position where you can not work, and so you often find yourself working in an unsafe environment. In South Omaha, the big example is the meatpacking plants, where we've had hundreds and hundreds of people infected, and many of them have died. And then thirdly, you don't have health insurance. And so getting COVID, even if you need to go to the ER for oxygen for a day, or you're in the hospital for a few days and don't have severe COVID, you're all of a sudden put out of balance with regards to kind of the delicate economic state that you're in. And now you've got debt that you don't know what to do with. And there's kind of one level deeper in the COVID and material poverty picture, and that's chronic disease. And so we know that people with diabetes, people with hypertension are at least 2 times more likely to develop severe COVID and die of COVID. I've got in my pool of patients at One World 4 patients that I can name and know their faces, and I've been working with them for years, that have died from COVID. All 4 of them had diabetes. 3 of them were in their 50s. So this is where the 1,200 patients that we work with in the Dominican Republic live. They live under the pall of COVID with the rest of us, but in material poverty and with chronic disease. So CCI's response has really been just 4 pieces. We had these grand hopes at the beginning of the year, and then as everyone else, we had to regroup and say, this is a different reality. What do we need to do to at least protect our 1,200 patients? And so the first thing that we needed to do was to stop inviting our patients to the clinic. We don't run our clinic like a typical US clinic. We don't give appointments at 8 o'clock and 8:20 and 8:40, but rather all of our patients come at the same time, first thing in the morning, or at the same time, first thing in the afternoon, and they spend a few hours with us. And during that time, they get their doctor's visit, but they also participate in an exercise routine, and we teach them exercises that are feasible for them to do at home. We give them educational talks, and we rotate themes on a monthly basis over time. They get all the important topics in education about their chronic disease. We give them their medications then and there on the spot, and we also do any lab testing that they need to make sure that their diseases are controlled. So the last thing we needed was for a group of people with diabetes and high blood pressure who are prone to severe COVID to all be in the same room at the same time. And so since the pandemic began, we've stopped working in the clinics, basically. The second piece that was equally important for the same reason was we had to stop our patients from traveling. So if you're a poor person in the Dominican Republic, you don't likely have your own vehicle. And so the only way to get around is public transportation. And when we are in the Dominican Republic, the most common form of transportation is what we call a guagua. And a guagua is basically a minivan. So it's a Honda Odyssey or a Dodge Caravan. And if you've ever visited the Dominican Republic, kind of a point of pride of visitors oftentimes is to see who got into the guagua that had the most people in it. And in my recent memory, I feel like my personal record is 28 people. So we essentially fit 28 people in the equivalent of a Honda Odyssey. And you can imagine kind of the social distancing implications and challenges around our patients taking that kind of transportation. So they can't go to the pharmacy, they can't come to the clinic. We just need them to not go anywhere. So not being able to travel, our patients fortunately have kind of 10 years of experience with us with regards to really understanding self-management and how to eat well and how to exercise and be physically active. But what they also need is their medications. And so without medications, our patients are going to be lapse into poor control with their diabetes and high blood pressure. And we know in addition that people with diabetes and high blood pressure who are poorly controlled have a higher risk of severe COVID. And so it was essential that we figure out how to get our patients their medications. And in the Dominican Republic, in a rural area, that is a challenge. And so our team of 16 shifted gears And instead of receiving patients in the clinic, they took our program mobile, basically. So they spent their time packaging medications and delivering them to over 30 villages in the rural area in the Dominican Republic, some of the villages up to an hour away from where the clinic is. And since the pandemic began, so I'm thinking beginning of March, they have delivered over 1,300,000 doses of medication to our 1,200 patients in their homes so that our patients can stay controlled. And then the last thing that we did and that we continue to do is to educate our patients about how to be safe. So we've taken advantage of visiting our patients to deliver the medications to really provide them essential education. The Dominican Republic is really no different than the US as relates to kind of COVID in the press. And so across social media and politics and what your neighbor says, people are getting all sorts of messages and conflicting messages about the truth of COVID and what works and what doesn't work. And so what we've tried to do organizationally is to distill out our best approximation of the truth and to deliver that to our patients on a regular basis so that they're staying safe as possible and hopefully don't contract COVID. So the coronavirus has really been a dehumanizing thing. We're all having to social distance from one another. We have to wear masks. We're no longer seeing faces and no longer have the language of physical touch that Susan spoke of. And really when we talk about helping people who aren't our neighbors, but who live across town or in another country, it's kind of the same phenomenon. It's a little detached, it's a little dehumanizing. And so I think it's essential that we keep names and faces tied to the work that we're doing. And so I thought I'd share just a few of the faces of the people we work with in the Dominican Republic, so you have a sense of who it is that if you support us financially, you're helping with your money. And so this first person is Altagracia. Altagracia is a middle-aged woman. She obviously has a fantastic smile. She must have a good dentist. Susan, I don't know if she goes to Corpus Family Dentistry or Hoover Dentistry, but she's got that kind of smile. And she is a cornerstone in her family. So as the health of Altagracia goes, so goes the health of her family. And so with diabetes and high blood pressure, what she needs is her medications, the education she's received from our program, so that she continues to be a cornerstone for her family. Maria is an elderly woman who is a source of wisdom and perspective for the next generations in her family. And she's an example of the person who's at most risk with COVID. She's both elderly and has chronic disease and would be the kind of person who would die if she got infected. And so we really need to keep her out of guaguas and keep her on her medications. This gentleman, George, is an example of an elderly person who lives in isolation. And we find that a lot with chronic disease, that people live in isolation. They don't have support. And so besides providing George with his medications and doctor visits and education, the other thing that he needs is a social network. And so as an organization, we're about 4 or 5 years into this process of organizing our patients into what we call groups of 5. And a group of 5 is you as a patient and the 4 patients who live nearest to you. And we ask that each group of 5 have a leader, and we give that leader formation on how to be a leader of a group of 5 so that it becomes a tight-knit network of people who have the same disease, who can understand the same challenges, and to help each other not live in isolation with their chronic disease. About 1 million people in the Dominican Republic are Haitian. And so Haiti shares the same island with the Dominican Republic. And so there's been a lot of emigration from Haiti, which is destitute, into the Dominican Republic. But the reality is when Haitians arrive in the Dominican Republic, they experience a fair amount of prejudice and they really continue to live in dire poverty. And so someone like Marie, when she develops diabetes and high blood pressure, she's really got no recourse. She can't get doctor's visits. She can't afford medications. She hasn't had any education, much less health education. And so she basically steps onto a path of inevitable complications and a shortened lifespan. And so all of the people of Haitian origin in the region of our clinics, we really love to provide them care as well, because we recognize what a really difficult situation they're in related to their material poverty. And so Maria is one example of people who really need our kind of help. Maria del Carmen represents what I would call kind of the fourth level of the COVID pit. So we talked about all of us being under this kind of weight of COVID, the people with material poverty uniquely so, and those with chronic disease even more so. I think the fourth and kind of the worst place I can imagine is if you are a single parent with a chronic disease and live in material poverty during this time of COVID, because you really live with this constant tension of if I get COVID, who's going to take care of my son? The gentleman in the middle of this picture, he has diabetes and he is blind, but as you'll see, he is not alone. And that's really who we are as Chronic Care International. We join with our patients to surround each individual with a message that they're valuable, that they're important, that they're loved. And we express that through our acts of service, through our words of encouragement and self-management support, through our gifts of medication, through our physical touch, and through the quality time that we spend with our patients and that they spend with each other. So if I've learned one thing during the pandemic, and if I'm convinced of one thing, it's that it is a call for all of us to reach out more generously with the four love languages that we have left to us, with words of encouragement to build each other up, to serve one another in small and intentional ways, to spend time with one another, even if it's 7 feet apart or 6 feet apart, or if it's over a Zoom session, and to be particularly generous in our giving to those who are struggling the most. So I really appreciate your taking the time to listen to both Susan with, I think, her very important topic of the love languages, and kind of an update as to who we are as Chronic Care International, where we are with the pandemic. And what I'd like to do is turn it over to Christian Warnicki. And Christian is on our board. He's been a great help to CCI, and he's going to give you a sense as to how you might use the 5 love languages to walk with CCI as we walk with the poor.
Thanks, Hans. First thing, before I go on, I want to talk a little bit more about the gentleman in the pink shirt that Hans showed in his last picture, who is blind. Now, part of CCI's model is to form groups of 5 patients to encourage each other to stay with your exercise, to stay with your diet. So that gentleman, despite being blind, still wanted to participate and not let his group of 5 members down. So what he had his friends and family do was tie a rope between 2 landmarks near his house so that he could walk back and forth with the guidance of the rope so he could still get his exercise in for the day. To me, that's pretty inspiring. And my second favorite story related to a CCI patient is Maria Magdalena. And I think Hans is going to show us a picture of Maria Magdalena in just a moment. Okay, all right, here Maria is. So before Maria came to the Patient Association at Sabana Ray, her tank was pretty empty, using Susan's metaphor. Her diabetes was very poorly controlled, and because of that, she didn't have much of an appetite, and she had a very bad infection on her foot. Now, this picture was taken a few years after she had become involved with the Patient Association at Sabana Ray. You'll notice that though she may not have that foot anymore due to that infection, she still has a smile on her face. Her diabetes is now well controlled. She has an appetite again. And as you can see, she has that smile, and she's able to bring that smile to the other members of the Patient Association in Sabana Ray. Her tank is full. Now, all of us have been in a rut over these last 6 months or so with the coronavirus keeping us confined to our houses. Now, we may think we might have it pretty bad, but when I get down on myself in that sense, I think of Maria Magdalena. I think of the gentleman in the previous picture in the pink shirt, and I realize that I don't have it so bad. Now, not only our colleagues in the Dominican Republic are struggling now too. Not only do they have to contend with coronavirus, they've also been battered with several hurricanes over the last several years, causing significant damages both in the patient association towns and in Santiago, where CCI operates out of. So I hope today that you might consider using your love language to make a gift to CCI to help us continue the work we're doing in the Dominican Republic. Now, I'm very proud of the fact that despite all the troubles that we're going through, CCI has not cut the pay of any of its Dominican-based staff. We're continuing to serve our patients. We're expanding our service offering, as Hans says, delivering those 1.3 million doses of medication to those 1,200 patients throughout the country. That's not cheap. So I hope you will consider what you heard today. I hope you might find that room in your heart to support Hans, to support the team in the Dominican Republic as they continue their efforts. Now, on the next page, you'll have several ways that you could provide that support. If you're interested in getting involved in another way, feel free to reach out to CCI on Facebook or through our website. In addition, after we're finished here, we're going to stay online if you have any questions you'd like to ask Hans or Susan. And before we go, I just wanted to thank one more time Hoover Dental, Village Point Pediatrics, Tax Help Omaha, and Baxter Auto for sharing their love language of gifts with us tonight. And I'd also like to thank Gary and Mary Pekar for sharing their love language of service with us, serving as our co-chairs tonight. And finally, Chris Anderson from Baird Holm for his act of service tonight and serving as our administrator for this webinar. So thank you to all of them. Thank you to the 50 or so of you who have contributed over $12,000 already tonight so that CCI can continue doing the work, the great work that they're doing in the Dominican Republic.